welcome to day 1 of the 7-day challenge. Today, as you may have read, is just going back to basics a little bit. And this is great for anyone who's a complete beginner. And it's also great for like the seasoned professional or practice regularly to just kind of revisit these every now and again, because as we start to develop in learning more repertoire, learning more exercises, it's encouraged that we keep going back to basics so that we can remember how these basics work, how these principles work as you develop in your technique and in your skills. So for me, there are principles that I like to abide to from different places of training. We're going to start with the first principle, which is breathing. And this is the most basic thing we do as humans. It's the first thing you do as you come out the womb, and it's the last thing that happens before you pass. So we need to keep breathing as we exercise, but there's a little bit of technique to it. We're going to start seated, and I'd like you to be as comfortable as possible in this position. So I like to sit on blocks. Not everyone has blocks, so please use a stack of books or a pile of cushions, something that's going to lift your pelvis higher off the floor than your feet. I'm going to go on a diagonal, so my feet are going to be out in front, hip distance apart, hands are just behind the thighs. It's really great to check in with the body, check in with the mind before you go anywhere. So maybe just allowing yourself to find comfort in the position you are. Always know that you can adjust and wriggle to find that, never has to be set. Closing the eyes, taking a moment to just settle into your seat. Allow yourself to soften in your shoulders, soften in the belly, soften into your hips. Just noticing how you're feeling today. This is not just your physical self, but how are you feeling upstairs in the mind? Anything that is coming up to the surface, just welcoming it into your space. And doing anything that feels good, and just stopping when anything feels uncomfortable or perhaps wrong for you. Maintaining this softness we may have found now. Take your attention to your breath. Simply breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Giving yourself this sacred time to clear the head and just be with your body, be with your breathing, noticing what's actually happening. That as we inhale, the rib cage expands, not just forwards, but it lifts up. And as we exhale, feeling how it drops down and draws in. Inhaling, the ribs lift up and expand out. Exhaling, the ribs draw down and in. Inhaling through the nose. And exhaling through the mouth. See if you can begin to exaggerate this movement. So as we inhale, sensing these ribs lifting up and out, finding a little bit more growth and length in the body. Exhaling to allow the spine to round forward, following that movement of the rib cage, making this as big or as little as you want. So because these ribs are moving to allow the lungs to inflate and deflate, to allow your diaphragm to rise and fall, The ribs being attached to the spine means that the spine is also having to move as well. So as we inhale, the spine goes up and into extension. And as we exhale and the ribs come forward and down, it encourages us to come into flexion. So I'd like you to stay in flexion, perhaps rounding a little bit further, maybe bringing the head between the knees, letting the head really hang here and the shoulders to drop. And see if you can just simply send the breath into the back of the rib cage, into the back of the body, breathing into that spine if you like. And then we're going to change and go completely the opposite. So we're going to lift up on our inhale, take your gaze just to the top cornice of the room. And inhale into the front of your rib cage. And then bring the body upright. Let's then take that sideways. Bring your right hand up to the ceiling, left hand's just going to find the floor. Taking a very small side bend over to the left, breathing into the right side of the rib cage. Imagining you could breathe into just your right lung. Softening with the exhale. And then taking it up and over to the right. And again, breathing into the left side of the ribs. And softening on the exhale. And bringing yourself back up. So I hope you've probably heard me with my exaggerated exhale out through pursed lips. The reason we purse the lips is like you're blowing out through a straw, creating a smaller hole than your both nostrils, your two nostrils. It has this kind of pressure that builds up to get the air to escape from the body. As that pressure builds up, the abdominals have to kick in and they start to draw in and up with the diaphragm to help the air escape. So I'd like you to take your hands now, you can cross your legs as well if that feels good. Take your hands just around your lower ribs and abdomen. Breathe into your hands this far down into your lungs, into your rib cage. And as you exhale, physically use your hand to kind of squeeze the air out through those pursed lips. Inhale, fill the ribs. And exhale, squeeze the air out. And hopefully if you're squeezing with your hands, you can feel this contraction happening in your waist. I sometimes describe this as like you're trying to squeeze the end of the toothpaste out of the toothpaste tube. And that really helps when we start to think about the pelvic floor as well. So a little bit of anatomy. Your diaphragm sits just where these ribs finish. And it's kind of in the shape, when it's relaxed, of two domes. Let's say like this. As you inhale, the diaphragm drops down, allowing the lungs to fill up. And then as you exhale, the diaphragm springs back up into these two domes. So as you can see, as the diaphragm drops down, it presses into the organs. Therefore, the organs have to go somewhere else, and they kind of press out to the sides, but they also press down. At the bottom of your pelvis, you've got your pelvic floor, which needs to drop as you inhale. So the diaphragm and the pelvic floor drop together. And as you exhale and the diaphragm springs back up, the organs come back up, and the pelvic floor should also be coming back up. So see if you can have a go at feeling that. Pelvic floor is attached like a diamond from your pubic bone to your tailbone, from your right sitting bone to your left sitting bone, that diamond, you're sat on it. So as you exhale now and purse the lips and blow out, think of that toothpaste tube, squeezing the air out of the body, lifting the pelvic floor, letting the abdominals draw up and letting that diaphragm push up. Inhale, all of it drops down and it's easy, and then you let go. Exhale, everything lifts back up again, pressing out through pursed lips. Inhale, drop down. Exhale, draw up. Inhale, drop down. Fill the toothpaste tube with air. Exhale, pelvic floor lifts. Squeeze the toothpaste out through the organs, through the diaphragm, through the lungs, out through your mouth. Again, last time, feeling with those hands, the waistband drawing in. And let that go. Hopefully you're not feeling too lightheaded. So what happens then, as the pelvic floor is lifting, it's attached to the most inside wall of your abdominals. You've got 4 layers of abdominals. And as it lifts up, it pulls on the belly button and it pulls the abdominals in. So as you breathe in, you're filling your lower lungs with air, the diaphragm pushes down, the organs push out. And as you exhale, the abdominals almost hug around the belly, the pelvic floor lifts. That pulls the belly button in and the waist shrinks. So if you had, like leggings, an elasticated waistband, as you inhale, that expands. And as you exhale, it draws in. It almost feels like it gets a little bit tighter, maybe. So that's your breathing. This sort of expansion and contraction, it obviously works your abdominals. It's how we begin to stabilize. But it's also a way of allowing your body, your nervous system, your mind to kind of find a place of rest, restore, and just simply letting go of any stress. So never worry if you feel like you're breathing the wrong way or if you've lost the breathing in an exercise. As long as you're still breathing, that's all that really matters. Forget about it sometimes, and then, like I said at the beginning, recap these beginner sessions or basic principle sessions every now and again to refresh your memory. Okay, let's move on to our second principle, which is about pelvic placement. So moving the knee blocks or cushions out of the way, come down to lying on your back, and we're going to have the knees bent hip distance apart. So, pelvic placement is important because we want to work to stabilize the pelvis in a neutral position so that when we're sitting, standing, running, whatever it is, we've got control over it and we're not going to be collapsing our spines. So just take your hands onto the front of your pelvis. So your fingertips are finding your pubic bone and the heels of your hands are finding the 2 bony landmark hip bones on the front of your pelvis. Allow yourself to again just settle and reconnect now to your mat. Let your backs relax. Allow the shoulders to relax. And just come back to the breathing calmly in through the nose and out through the mouth. So, moving the pelvis is controlled from your center. As you exhale, I'd like you to think about drawing your pubic bone to your belly button. And in that motion, you're allowing your lower back to just flatten onto the floor. As you inhale, belly softens, and the pelvis, like an elastic band, just springs back to where it was. Exhale, pubic bone draws to your belly button, tipping the lower back down. Inhale, springing it back to neutral. So we're essentially rolling our pelvis and our lower back into flexion and then releasing back to neutral, center, whatever word you want to give it. Still thinking of that toothpaste tube. take this then side to side. So imagining an old set of weighing scales where they were balancing if you had the right amount of weight on each side. If you put too much weight in one side, it would tip. Same thing here. If you imagine putting more weight down through your right hand and your right hip, the pelvis is going to roll to the right. You can again let it just spring to center. Put more weight or force down through your left side, you'll roll to the left and come back to center. So just continue kind of using your hands here to help the body move around in space. You'll feel that as you push down and weigh down through the right side, the left side becomes feather-like in its weight. So can you do this side to side without the legs swaying side to side? To be able to do this, you need to relax into your hips and into your glutes, which takes sometimes a bit of practice. Just give it a go. Keep the legs parallel, keep the kneecaps facing the ceiling as you weigh down onto the right side of your pelvis and bring it back to center. Weigh down onto the left side of your pelvis and bring it back to center. To the right, center, to the left, center, to the right, center, to the left. You may even notice one leg kind of moving forward and one leg moving backwards. They're still parallel, kneecaps are still facing the ceiling, but one leg moves away from the body to encourage this movement. We're going to take it now into what's called a pelvic clock. So if you visualize an analog clock face, and it's on your pelvis looking up to the ceiling with 12 o'clock on your belly button, 3 on your pubic bone. Because the clock's facing up to the ceiling, left hip is 3 o'clock, right hip is 9 o'clock. And we're going to roll our pelvis around the clock. So on your exhale, zipping the pubic bone to your belly button, we tip to 12. Starting going to your left-hand side clockwise, 1, 2, 3, rolling the pelvis forward, 4, 5, 6. We've got an exaggerated arch in our lower backs, rolling around to the right, 7, 8, 9, back down, 10, 11, 12. Keep going around in a circle. We want to try and find a sense of loosey-goosey ease in this motion. So it's not a stiff thing, it's not hard work, we're just lubricating up the hips and the lower back. See if you can change direction going anti-clockwise. 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 12. 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 12. One more time. And then when you come back to 12, let the pelvis spring back to your neutral. And hopefully it's a place that feels like all those 12 numbers lie level. So if they were on a lake, they're all sort of bobbing level on the top of the lake. So this is important to then stabilize with that breathing. We're going to challenge the stability of it by disassociating the leg from the pelvis at the hip joint, hip disassociation. So on your next inhale, without collapsing that lower back to the floor, float one leg up to tabletop, vertical thigh bone, shin parallel to the floor. Exhale, stabilize by drawing the abdominals in, pelvic floor up towards the end of the exhale where you're at your most strongest, then drop the leg down. Inhale, float the other leg up. Exhale, nearly all of the air out. Then dropping the foot to the floor. Inhale, it's like a soft pillow as you lift the leg up. Exhale, you blow out the air, stay there, stay there, stay there. Then let the foot come down. Inhale, expand and lift. Exhale, stabilize. And then lower. Let's go once more, right. And down. And left. And back. We're going to challenge that. Inhale, lift one leg to tabletop. Exhale, stabilize. Keep that natural lower back space as you bring the second leg up to tabletop. Staying here, shins parallel to the floor, thighs vertical. Balancing that pelvic clock equally. Natural amount of space under our lower backs. Feeling how much the abdominals just have to be consistently working to keep your legs here. Carrying this on into your dead bug exercise. Exhale, tap your right foot to the floor. Inhale, bring it back. Exhale, stabilize, send the left foot to the floor. Inhale, bring it back. Exhale, right. Inhale up. Exhale, left. Inhale up. If you feel like this is really working for you and you've got it, connect your feet together and then double dip. Exhale, send both feet towards the floor. Inhale up. Be really conscious with this double leg. It's putting more load through the abdominals and therefore through the lower back. So if you're unable to stabilize the lower back, go back a step. Go back to single legs. Or you can go back to the single leg lift. All right, last one coming up. And then give your legs a good squeeze in and just wriggle that pelvis out here. Give it a little bit of a rest for the moment. We're going to then come to another principle, organising your shoulders, your neck and your head. It's an area where quite often I see clients and they're thinking so much and it's like they've totally left the head behind. The brain is up there, it's functioning, it's going at 100 miles per hour, but the head itself is just forgotten about. Or I see tension and stress coming into shoulders and then it's all just gone a little bit horribly wrong. So we want to find lots of length, lots of space, lots of ease of movement in this area. So we're going to start seated and you're going to have your arms down by your sides. Yeah, just checking my notes. Again, if you want to bring the blocks or the cushions back into play to find a comfortable place, then do. There are different movements for your shoulders, but we want to think about the shoulder blades, your scapula, those triangle bones that sit on your back of your ribs. So, first movement is elevation, which is your simple shrug up. Exhale, depress the shoulders down, not just to where they were, but a little bit further. Maybe sensing how that can lengthen your neck. So shrug the shoulders up on an inhale, helps with the elevation of the ribs. Exhale, drop the shoulders down to press them past neutral. Inhale, shrug up. Exhale, down. They're the kind of easy ones, but that depression down is really important for a lot of Pilates exercises. So on your back, you have your lats muscles, your latissimus dorsi, and they come attaching up into your arm. They go across your shoulder blade and down in a big long triangle into your lower back. So when we're doing the depression of our shoulder blades, you want to think about this V shape of them drawing down and into the lower back. Or as I've heard before, slide them into the back pocket of your trousers. So you're drawing them down into those trousers. So the next ones you've got are shoulder blades protracting, coming away from one another and retracting. This can be quite handy to hold on to something, as weird as that sounds. So I'm going to hold on to a block. Feel free to hold on to anything in your room that you can lift and take to shoulder height. Arms are going to stay straight. As you inhale, draw your shoulders forward without rounding the spine. So just the shoulder blades coming around almost under your armpit. As you exhale, draw the shoulder blades back and connect behind you, almost like they could pinch your spine. Shoulder blades come forward into protraction. Shoulder blades come back into retraction. Or if you're holding on to something, you're reaching and offering that to somebody in front of you, and then you're pulling it away from them saying, no, that's mine. Offer it to someone kindly, and then draw it back away from them, retract it. You retract a gift, you retract something, right? It's the same thing, you're retracting your shoulder blades. So that's 1 and 2. They're going to come into weight bearing in a second. That's 3 and 4. 5 and 6 is your shoulder blades upwardly rotating, downwardly rotating. So just come onto your backs, make sure you've got space around you. Take your arms up to the ceiling. Give your shoulder blades a bit of a wriggle around, sense where they are between you and the mat, and then take your arms up behind your head. You're going to take, like a little snow angel, arms are going to stay hovering off the floor as they circle around and down to your hips, and around and up behind your head. And you might get some clunks and cracks and gristly bits here. And if that happens, if this doesn't feel quite right, lift the arms a little bit higher off the floor. What I hope you can feel though is the shoulder blades moving on your back between you and the mat. And you can feel that as the arms come down, it's like those shoulder blades are also coming down and into the body. And as the arms go up, the shoulder blades kind of wing out to the side. They come down and in. They go out and away, just like the arms. Okay. So when we are doing exercises in flexion with our spine, the shoulders can have a huge influence on what our exercise is. So we're just going to do a chest lift. So I'd like you to take your arms to the ceiling. If you reach your arms up as high as you possibly can and then keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going, can you feel how your ribs really have to drop down into the floor? Yes, the neck probably has gone a bit funny and left behind. So bring that back down. Reach the arms up again. Keep reaching, and when it feels like your head is going to get pulled, roll your chin into your chest. And then instead, arc your arms forward to your knees. There you are in your chest lift, with the shoulders in great placement away from your ears, really wide on the back. And then you can let the arms soften, relax the shoulders to bring you back down. So you reach up. When you feel those ribs rolling forward and the head moving, roll the chin to the chest, reach the arms forward, and then relax it to come back down. One more time, reaching up, rounding forwards, releasing to come back down. See if you can do that with the hands in a different position. Interlace the hands, take them behind the head. Bring your elbows halfway between being flat on the floor and up to the ceiling, somewhere in the middle. Shoulder blades then again should be felt hopefully underneath you. So can we again think about the elbows reaching out to the side away from us so the shoulder blades widen. You might even feel your shoulders drop down. And then from there, exhaling, dropping the ribs, keep reaching the elbows wide to bring you up off the floor, and then soften them to come back down. Reach the shoulders wide to come up and back down. If that one's not making much sense, you can bring your elbows a little bit closer together and you might feel that a little bit more, just like the previous exercise with the arms when they were shoulder distance apart. Okay? Practice that one in your own time. Feel like the shoulders are helping the movement. If you roll onto your side and come up onto your hands and knees, when we weight bear, which is coming up in a moment, the shoulders are also really important. So that same protraction and retraction. Remember the retract, you're taking away, you weren't offering the gift, you were pulling it back, you were retracting it back. So it's the same thing here on hands and knees. Can you retract your shoulder blades, bringing them towards one another? And then can you protract them by thinking about sending your hands down into the mat. As that happens, letting the chest float up between the shoulder blades. Retracting them together and protracting them apart by sending the arms down, floating the chest up. All of this is happening keeping a lot of length and a lot of space between your ears, your neck and your shoulders. So be really careful that it's not going into a sort of tight shoulder-like position. It should feel really easy and free. Okay, so this kind of takes us into weight bearing. You can sit back, let your wrists relax for a moment. Weight bearing is one of the best things that we can do as we get older because it helps As we are resisting gravity, it helps build up bone density, and for a lot of people, especially women, that decreases with age and the menopause. So weight bearing is something we should be doing every day. We do it on our legs because we stand, but we don't often do it on our hands. And wrists therefore can become weak and vulnerable. So what I'd like you to do is when you come onto your hands and knees, spread your fingers as wide as you possibly can. Press down into your finger length, not just the fingertips, but the actual length of your fingers. And see if you could even get to the point where the heels of your hands could lift off the mat. And then lower the heels of the hands down. Now, if you're quite weak in the wrist, this is going to be really hard. But again, great thing to practice, especially as we age. So the weight needs to be, therefore, not too far forward over the wrists. Bring the weight sort of 60% back into your shins, 40% forward into your hands to find that freedom and mobility in the wrists. Then the weight is going to stay there the entire time. It's also really important to then think about the shoulders again, because we don't want to collapse in weight bearing. That's gravity winning. We want to be supportive of our spines. So as imagining if you had a helium balloon attached to the back of your head and a helium balloon attached between your shoulder blades on your back and a helium balloon attached to your sacrum and tailbone, that those three are lifting up towards the ceiling. That's going to, again, take the weight out of the wrist so we're not compressing. And then from here, we can then extend one leg back behind us, tucking the toes, and then bring it back in. Extend the other leg, tuck the toes, bring it back in. Really simple, almost prep for going into a plank. And if you want to take it into a plank, to take the second leg off the floor, guess what? Press your weight back into the foot behind you, 60%, 40% down into the hands, pressing through the fingers as you then free up that second leg. And you can kind of do one knee in, two knees in, one leg out, one leg out. Being really conscious that we're not collapsing into that spine. Gravity isn't winning. The helium balloons are lifting us away from the mat. Rest there, shake it out. Okay. Sort of therefore bringing our way up to standing. Another really important principle is alignment, and especially alignment through our legs. If you think about it, when we stand, sorry I'm going to go out of vision, we're looking for neutral pelvis, neutral spine. But if our feet roll in or roll out, or one foot rolls in, you can see what happens to the legs, right? Especially in the knees. Even if the weight is forward or backwards, you can see what happens with the pelvis. So not that we're all working for the same thing, but we're working to find our version of neutral spine. So we are hoping to find alignment that the feet are set up as wide as our hips, the hips not being here, but actually being much more closer in towards the pubic bone. So if you were to take your fingers just inside of your hips, your 3 and 9 of your pelvic clock, point down, your feet should be aligned to that. Then as you bend your knees, we're trying to track our knees over our toes. Okay, so as you straighten and bend your legs, have a look down. As you bend your knees, you should be able to see just the inside perhaps of your big toes. This is perfect, not perfect, but ideal alignment, because what's happening is then the pelvis is just able to find neutral. You can imagine if our knees were knocking together, what happens is the sitting bones widen, the pelvis rolls forward, the lower back arches. It's like a duck position. Equally, if the knees go out to the side, we're probably sort of leaning back, tucking under. Pelvis isn't quite neutral. So lovely alignment, knees and hips. That's something you can practice in your own time. You could also practice it with some heel raises. Can you land your heels down in line? Can you also come up to rise without rolling the ankles out? Keep everything under those hips again. You can challenge that. One-legged, here we go, let's give it a go. Rise the heel up, woo, and down. These are great, I always give these as homework when you're brushing your teeth. 30 seconds on one leg, then 30 seconds on the other leg. Improves your balance as well. Don't fall over, there we go. And then another way you can do it is to take yourself into what in Pilates is our version of full squat. So you're bending your knees, keeping your spine upright, folding into the hips, hip disassociation, neutral spine, neutral pelvis, breathe. You see how everything's coming together? Exhale, keep the alignment through your knees as you push the heels down and stretch your legs. If anyone has any knee issues, reduce this range, keep it much smaller and take it as far as feels comfortable. Okay, let's take this then into some of our final principles. Or the final principle rather, which is movement integration, kind of what I was doing at the end there. Can we bring all of these components together to create one exercise? So what I'd like us to do is come onto our backs again. Last thing. We're going to combine a chest lift for head, neck and shoulder organisation. If you have osteoporosis, you can just keep the head on the floor and use the arms perhaps instead. We're going to do toe taps to do hip disassociation, watching our alignment with our eyes. We're going to breathe. We're going to find pelvic placement. Okay? So, hands interlaced underneath head. Elbows halfway up towards the ceiling. Taking a deep breath in, float one leg to tabletop, maintaining neutral pelvis. Exhale, blow nearly all of the air out, pelvic floor up, waistband in. Second leg comes to tabletop. Staying here, take a deep breath in. As you exhale, reach the shoulder blades wide as you flex forward into your chest lift. Inhale, lower it back down. Exhale, flexing forward, shoulders wide. Inhale down. Keep the length in the neck, and with your chin, imagine holding a little lemon just to keep a bit of space there. Now, as you continue on your next exhale, tap your right foot to the floor as you come up. Inhale down. Exhale, left foot. Inhale down. Can we concentrate breathing? Pelvic placement. Organisation of head, neck, shoulders. Lower body alignment. And be able to move whilst all of this is happening. Last one. And then let it go there. Nice. So that's the end of day one. That's your principles. If you need to recap any of those bits, then do. Maybe take into practice some of those exercises, and I'll see you for day 2.